Humanity was a young species in the galactic arena, barely 3 centuries into faster-than-light travel. The Dominion of Xelthar, an empire spanning millions of years, saw them as nothing more than an amusing anomaly. Xelthar had crushed thousands of civilizations before they could become threats, and they saw no reason why humanity would be any different. When humanity expanded into the Perseus Arm, they unknowingly stepped into Xelthar-controlled space. The first encounter was swift and brutal. Xelthar warships descended upon human colonies, annihilating them with precision strikes. The message was clear: humanity would submit or be erased. The United Earth Federation convened in emergency session. Military leaders analyzed the enemy's overwhelming strength. Xelthar technology was centuries ahead, their fleets outnumbered human forces 1,000 to 1, and their empire spanned the stars like a shadow of inevitability. A conventional war was suicide. But humanity had one advantage. Unlike other species that had fallen before the Xelthar, humanity was unpredictable. Their species had evolved through deception, strategy, and innovation in ways the galaxy had never seen. If brute force would not win the war, then intelligence would. Human agents infiltrated galactic trade hubs, gathering intelligence on Xelthar operations. They discovered something crucial. The Xelthar's power did not come from their own innovation. They had not truly advanced in thousands of years. Instead, they assimilated or stole technology from every species they conquered, integrating it into their empire. Their dominance was built on a foundation of stolen genius rather than their own progress. Humanity saw their opportunity. If the Xelthar could be manipulated into believing that humanity had some revolutionary technology, they might hesitate, analyze, and attempt to acquire it rather than destroy outright. And hesitation was the key to survival. The first step was spreading misinformation. Human scientists publicly claimed to have developed a breakthrough, a method of faster-than-light travel that did not require conventional hyperlanes. Such a technology would be a game-changer, rendering the Xelthar's vast network of controlled hyperlanes obsolete. It was a lie, but the Xelthar didn't know that. Xelthar spies intercepted fabricated reports about the new technology. The Xelthar High Council immediately took notice. They had seen empires rise and fall, and they knew the danger of allowing an inferior species to develop something they themselves did not control. Instead of wiping humanity out, the Xelthar did something they had never done before. They proposed a temporary ceasefire. They sent diplomats, disguised as conquerors, offering integration into the Dominion. Their goal was to coerce humanity into sharing its supposed breakthrough before they crushed them entirely. The UEF played along. They feigned arrogance, making the Xelthar believe they were stalling negotiations to buy time. In reality, they were preparing their next move. Human engineers built false research stations filled with fabricated data. They created elaborate forgeries of prototype engines, complete with misleading schematics. They even constructed partially completed starships to give the illusion that their new FTL system was on the verge of deployment. The Xelthar grew impatient. Their spies tried to steal the data, but the humans had prepared for that. Every stolen blueprint contained deliberate flaws, minor details that, when assembled, would render the technology useless or even catastrophic. Growing desperate, the Xelthar demanded an immediate demonstration. Humanity agreed but proposed a neutral location for the test. A remote system on the edge of explored space was selected. The Xelthar, wary but curious, sent an observation fleet. Humanity unveiled a massive warship, supposedly equipped with the revolutionary drive. The moment of truth arrived. Before the Xelthar's eyes, the ship activated its prototype engine, vanishing in an impossible burst of light. The Xelthar were stunned. They had never seen such a feat. Unbeknownst to them, the ship had not achieved any breakthrough in propulsion. Instead, humanity had mastered deception to perfection. The ship had used conventional technology, cloaking itself before making a standard jump while releasing an experimental EMP burst to temporarily blind Xelthar sensors. To the Xelthar, it looked like a miracle. The Xelthar High Council panicked. If humanity truly possessed this power, then the balance of the galaxy had shifted. If the humans spread this technology to others, the Xelthar's reign would be threatened like never before. They had to act, but how? Humanity's gamble had paid off. The Xelthar were no longer thinking like conquerors. They were thinking like scavengers desperate for a stolen advantage. And that hesitation was the first crack in the ancient empire's armor. The Xelthar High Council convened in secrecy deep within their core system. The human demonstration had shaken them. If the United Earth Federation truly possessed a method of travel that bypassed hyperlanes, it would render the Xelthar's control over the galaxy meaningless. They had to acquire the technology before it spread. Their first move was subtle. They dispatched emissaries under the guise of trade negotiators, offering humanity a place in their empire in exchange for scientific collaboration. The UEF pretended to consider the offer, engaging in slow-moving discussions while ensuring that each diplomatic meeting leaked just enough misinformation to keep the Xelthar interested but never satisfied. Meanwhile, the Xelthar's intelligence network moved aggressively. Their spies infiltrated human-controlled space, attempting to bribe or coerce defectors. The UEF anticipated this and planted false scientists, operatives trained to feed the Xelthar carefully crafted lies. Reports emerged of a hidden human research facility located in a distant, uncharted system, where the so-called revolutionary drive was being perfected. The bait was set. The Xelthar, impatient and desperate, deployed a fleet under the cover of darkness. The task force consisted of elite operatives, their mission clear: capture the facility, extract the technology, and leave no survivors. They believed humanity had no idea they were coming. They were wrong. When the Xelthar strike force arrived at the coordinates, they found exactly what they expected: a hidden research station orbiting a barren planet, protected by a skeleton crew. The facility appeared vulnerable. Xelthar forces moved in, their soldiers breaching the station with precision. They stormed the corridors, encountering minimal resistance. Human scientists surrendered, seemingly caught off guard. The Xelthar raiders accessed the main laboratory, extracting data files and capturing what they believed to be working prototypes of the human drive. They did not realize they had walked into a trap. As soon as the stolen technology was aboard their ships, the station's automated defenses activated. Blast doors sealed shut. Hidden turrets emerged, cutting down Xelthar soldiers before they could react. Alarms blared as the human skeleton crew suddenly turned from frightened captives to ruthless combatants, striking with precision. The entire facility had been designed as a kill box. Panic spread through the Xelthar ranks. Their fleet in orbit attempted an emergency extraction, but that's when they saw it: human warships emerging from cloaked positions. The UEF had been waiting for them. Jamming fields cut off communication. The Xelthar's own stolen technology was useless against them. Their flagship attempted to jump to safety, but the moment they activated the stolen drive, their ship tore itself apart. The breakthrough they had stolen was a carefully designed lie, engineered to fail catastrophically when activated. The explosion crippled half their fleet. The UEF strike force struck with terrifying efficiency. Human fighters weaved between Xelthar vessels, targeting weak points. One by one, Xelthar ships detonated in brilliant flashes of light. Within minutes, the Xelthar fleet was decimated. The survivors, unable to escape, were captured. News of the disaster reached the Xelthar High Council. Shock turned to fury. Humanity had played them for fools, and now their ancient empire had suffered a humiliation it had never known. The Xelthar finally understood what they were dealing with. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered. They were something the Xelthar had never faced before, an enemy that did not fight wars through brute force alone but with deception, strategy, and an unpredictability that defied all logic. The Dominion of Xelthar had underestimated humanity. And for the first time in a million years, they felt fear. The Xelthar High Council could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity was not an upstart species to be crushed with a show of force. They were something far more dangerous, a species that thrived on misdirection, manipulation, and subversion. The loss of their strike fleet had been a humiliation, but worse than that, it had been a revelation. The humans had known their every move and had laid a trap so intricate that even the Xelthar's finest minds had failed to detect it. The council debated their next course of action. Some demanded immediate retaliation, a full-scale invasion of human space to eradicate the threat before it spread. Others urged caution. The humans had proven that they were not bound by conventional warfare. What if this, too, was another trap? What if humanity had deliberately let them win small skirmishes to lull them into a false sense of superiority? The uncertainty was paralyzing. For a species that had ruled unchallenged for millions of years, this was an unfamiliar and deeply unsettling experience. Humanity wasted no time. While the Xelthar debated, the UEF enacted the next phase of their plan. Covert teams spread false intelligence throughout the galaxy, leaking rumors of humanity's supposed breakthroughs in energy weapons, shield technology, and even biological enhancements that allowed humans to surpass the physical limits of any known species. These rumors reached not only the Xelthar but also their many subject races, the civilizations that had been conquered and subjugated under their rule. Dissent began to spread. If humanity had truly developed such revolutionary technology, then why should the Xelthar be the only ones to benefit from it? The whispers of rebellion grew louder. Minor uprisings flared in distant corners of the Dominion, forcing the Xelthar to divert resources to maintain control. Still, the Xelthar refused to believe they could be outmaneuvered by a species so young. They decided to test humanity in a way that could not be faked. If the UEF truly possessed superior technology, they would be forced to use it in open battle. The Xelthar assembled a massive armada, sending it straight toward a major human colony, New Elysium, a thriving world with billions of inhabitants. Humanity had expected this. The moment the Xelthar fleet entered the system, they were met with a surprise. There were no human warships. No planetary defenses powered up. Instead, a single automated transmission was broadcast from New Elysium. A countdown. The Xelthar hesitated. Their warships scanned for any sign of a trap. The planet's surface appeared normal. Then the countdown reached 0. Every power grid on New Elysium shut down simultaneously. From orbit, it looked as if the entire colony had simply ceased to function. Cities went dark. Communication signals vanished. Life signs flickered and then disappeared entirely. It was as if every human on the planet had suddenly been erased. The Xelthar panicked. Had humanity truly developed a weapon so advanced that it could wipe out an entire world without a single shot fired, or was this another illusion? The fleet held position, scanning for answers. But then, a new signal emerged. It was coming from their own ships. One by one, Xelthar vessels began to shut down. Navigation systems scrambled. Engines failed. Weapons locked up. The fleet had been compromised from within. New Elysium had not been abandoned. It had been turned into a trap, an entire planet converted into a massive electronic warfare weapon. Humanity had seeded false energy signatures and fabricated life signs to lure the Xelthar in. The moment the enemy fleet entered range, advanced cyber warfare programs infiltrated their systems through their own scanning equipment, shutting them down from the inside. Human warships emerged from their hidden positions, effortlessly picking off the helpless Xelthar fleet. Some enemy captains attempted to activate their stolen human FTL drives, only to watch in horror as their ships disintegrated upon activation. Within hours, the entire armada was destroyed. The Xelthar High Council received the news in stunned silence. Humanity had not only defeated them again but had done so in a way that shattered the fundamental rules of war. The Xelthar had always relied on superior numbers and firepower, but what good was strength when your enemy could make you destroy yourself? Panic spread through the Empire. The Xelthar had always ruled through fear. Now, for the first time, they were the ones who were afraid. The Xelthar Dominion had never encountered anything like this before. For millions of years, they had been the absolute power in the galaxy. Every species they had faced had fallen in line, either through brute force or fear. But humanity had exposed something the Xelthar had never considered, the fragility of their own rule. The loss of their fleet at New Elysium sent shockwaves through the Empire. It was not just a military defeat but a psychological one. Their weapons had failed them. Their intelligence had been deceived. Their own technology had been turned against them. And worst of all, they had no idea what humanity's true capabilities were. The High Council descended into chaos. The old strategies no longer applied. Some called for immediate peace negotiations, fearing that humanity was on the verge of an even greater revelation. Others demanded retaliation on a scale never before seen, a war of annihilation, no matter the cost. But the decision was taken out of their hands. Across the Dominion, rebellion erupted. Uprisings that had simmered in the shadows for centuries now burst into the open. Dozens of subject species, long enslaved under Xelthar rule, saw an opportunity. If the mighty empire could be deceived and defeated by a young species, then perhaps it was not as invincible as they had been made to believe. Humanity did not reach out to these rebels. They did not send weapons or advisors. They didn't need to. The mere idea of humanity's defiance was enough to light the fire of revolution. The Xelthar scrambled to contain the chaos. Fleets were redeployed to suppress revolts, but that left their borders vulnerable. The Dominion had always relied on maintaining absolute control, but now, they were being pulled apart from within. And humanity was not done yet. The UEF enacted the final stage of their strategy. They broadcast a single message, not just to the Xelthar but to the entire galaxy. It was a declaration. The United Earth Federation had no interest in conquest. No desire to rule. But they would not be subjugated. They would not be controlled. And they would not be the last species to stand against tyranny. The message was simple but devastating. It confirmed what every rebellious species had hoped for. The Xelthar were not invincible. They could be outmaneuvered. They could be beaten. The Dominion's borders collapsed. Worlds that had once been held under Xelthar rule by sheer terror now refused to comply. Xelthar governors were overthrown. Military outposts found themselves isolated and abandoned. Entire fleets defected or disappeared, unwilling to fight a war they no longer believed in. And then, the unthinkable happened. For the first time in a million years, the Xelthar Dominion's core world, the beating heart of their empire, was under threat. Not from human warships. Not from any invading force. But from within. Their own people, seeing the writing on the wall, began to question everything. If humanity could outmaneuver their leaders so completely, if the Dominion's supposed superiority had been nothing more than an illusion, then what else had been a lie? The High Council, once the supreme authority of the galaxy, now faced its greatest nightmare. The fear they had used to rule for so long had turned against them. And humanity had done it all without firing a single shot at their homeworld. The Xelthar High Council sat in stunned silence. Their empire, the eternal, indomitable force that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years, was unraveling before their very eyes. And humanity had orchestrated its collapse without ever deploying a single invasion fleet or engaging in direct planetary warfare. The rebellion was spreading too fast to contain. Xelthar warlords, once loyal to the Dominion, now declared independence, carving out their own territories. Subject species that had once lived in fear now openly defied their former masters. Entire fleets defected rather than fight a losing war. The High Council had one final option: eradication. If they could not rule, they would burn everything. They prepared their Doomsday Protocol, a fleet of planet-killer weapons, designed to wipe out entire civilizations in a single strike. Their logic was simple: if the galaxy would not bow to the Xelthar, then it would perish with them. Humanity was ready. Even as the Xelthar prepared their apocalyptic campaign, the UEF executed its final gambit. Across the Dominion, Xelthar military command systems began to fail. Warships lost navigation control. Communications blacked out. Planetary defenses shut down. The Xelthar had assumed their networks were impenetrable, safeguarded by the best minds in their empire. But they had made one fatal mistake. For centuries, their power had been built on stolen technology. Every advancement they had was taken from another species and modified to serve their needs. And that meant they had no idea how much of their own infrastructure had been unknowingly compromised. Humanity had spent years studying their systems, infiltrating their networks, and planting undetectable backdoors. Every time the Xelthar had stolen data, every time they had tried to extract human technology, they had unknowingly let humanity inside their most secure systems. And now, at the moment of their greatest desperation, the humans shut them down. Xelthar warships refused to fire. Their planet-killer weapons self-destructed in their launch bays. Their own defense grids turned against them, locking their forces out of their own strongholds. The High Council watched in horror as their empire collapsed, not in flames, not in battle, but in silence. Their power had been erased with the press of a button. Humanity did not invade. They did not conquer. They did not replace one empire with another. They simply let the Xelthar destroy themselves. And for the first time in a million years, the oldest empire in the galaxy was no more. The Xelthar Dominion was finished. Its fleets lay powerless, its rulers paralyzed, its systems collapsing under the weight of their own arrogance. The species they had ruled for millennia no longer feared them. The very foundation of their empire, controlled through technological superiority, had been turned against them by a species they had once dismissed as insignificant. But humanity was not cruel. The United Earth Federation broadcast one final message to the remnants of the Xelthar leadership. Surrender. There would be no annihilation, no revenge, no extermination. Humanity had no interest in ruling over the broken remains of an empire. They only sought one thing, an end to the cycle of oppression. For the first time in their history, the Xelthar had no choice but to listen. With no fleets left to command, no armies to deploy, and no control over their own systems, they agreed to a full and unconditional ceasefire. The galaxy held its breath. Across former Dominion space, rebellions turned into revolutions. Entire civilizations declared independence overnight. The old order was gone, and something new was taking shape. And humanity stepped away. They did not claim new territory. They did not demand tribute. They had never wanted an empire. Instead, they helped broker peace between the fractured remnants of the Dominion and the newly freed civilizations. They shared knowledge, rebuilt devastated worlds, and ensured that no single power could ever dominate the galaxy the way the Xelthar had. Some former Xelthar leaders went into exile. Others tried to cling to whatever influence they could. But the truth was undeniable: their time was over. Humanity had outmaneuvered the oldest empire in the galaxy, not with superior firepower, but with intelligence, strategy, and patience. And as the stars settled into their new order, the name of Earth was spoken not with fear, but with something far more powerful: respect. The fall of the Xelthar Dominion sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Civilizations that had lived under their rule for millennia suddenly found themselves free for the first time in history. Some species rejoiced, eager to build new futures. Others feared the power vacuum, wondering if another empire would rise to take the Xelthar's place. But humanity did not seize power. Instead, they did something no one expected. They shared everything. The same knowledge and technology that had brought the Xelthar to their knees were now given freely to any species willing to learn. Encryption methods to prevent cyber warfare. Decentralized governance models to prevent authoritarian rule. Engineering advancements that allowed smaller civilizations to defend themselves without needing massive fleets. In the ruins of the Dominion, something new began to take shape, not another empire, but a balance of power the galaxy had never known. Some Xelthar, broken and leaderless, sought revenge. Isolated warlords attempted to strike back, but they no longer had the technological advantage. Every species they had once oppressed now knew how to counter them. Their fleets were outmaneuvered. Their strongholds fell. They had become relics of a past the galaxy was ready to leave behind. As humanity continued to work alongside newly freed civilizations, whispers spread through the stars. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the oldest empire without ever launching a direct invasion. They had turned an ancient dominion against itself. They had refused to claim the throne of the fallen. And in doing so, they had done something no species had ever accomplished. They had broken the cycle. For the first time in a million years, the galaxy was not ruled by fear. And it was humanity, not as conquerors, but as strategists, diplomats, and visionaries, who had made it possible. the Xelthar had once seen them as nothing more than an anomaly. Now, they were a legend.